If you're a nurse who's been wanting to start your mobile infusion business and you've been researching how to and coming up with multiple different answers, and your brain feels like it's about to explode because you have seen all these conflicting answers, this video is for you. Today, we are going to go into the boards that you and agencies that you actually are going to report to. And I'm sure there's some on there that you did not even realize, as well as 5 questions that you will want to know that will help protect your license before you launch. So let's get into the legalities. So legalities, as you guys know, I teach a course on mobile IV therapy startup. And one of the biggest questions that I get from nurses is, how can you help me if you live in a different state than me? Well, I can't tell you the exact, but I can tell you what you need to look for and verify in order to make sure that you are compliant, and how you can attempt to do a lot of the research, and then what type of lawyer, yes, it is a specific type of lawyer, you'll want to use to verify this. And going through this, I can tell you legalities are so big to me. I do not want to lose my license. I work so hard for. I don't want to jeopardize anything. And so whenever I had gone through and found all of this out, I can tell you the peace that you get from knowing okay, I'm not scared I'm gonna get in trouble, because IV therapy is very unregulated, but it is definitely starting to get cracked down on, and you do not want to make sure you are not set up right. So let's get into it. We're gonna start off with who regulates this and what do we kind of need to know about it. So first of all, the Board of Nursing, obviously. The Board of Nursing, they really can go into the scope and delegation. So sometimes the boards, you will learn, they will try to have say in other boards area. And sometimes that will result in some clarification, and I will get to that in a minute. So the second one is actually the Board of Pharmacy. I don't know if you knew that, but we do have to be compliant and report to them because we are compounding. Since whenever we are mixing vitamins into the bag, that is compounding. And so therefore we report to the Board of Nursing, the Board of Pharmacy. We also have to be compliant, not necessarily us. This is more, we have to be compliant with the Board of Nursing, but our business has to be compliant with these other boards. The medical board is another one that we have to be compliant with, because you do have to obviously have a physician, and they're going to determine how involved your physician has to be. Now, I have seen and I have gotten infusions, and I have heard of patients just booking online, the nurse showing up and doing the infusion. There is zero consult. That is a red flag. You know what that is? That is the nurse acting as the prescriber, and that is not in our scope of practice. That's very bad. Don't do that. That is a big thing, don't do. But I feel like that should be very straightforward. But sometimes, if we're not taught it and you're in a different environment than the hospital, sometimes we might think that is normal. And let me tell you, that is not normal. The health department actually is another one that some states the health department is more or less involved, but they can be involved in mobile storage, sanitation, and disposal, but also technically kind of so is the Board of Pharmacy. It also just depends on the state. And so these are some of the main ones that we have to be compliant with, more than just the Board of Nursing. So next, let's go over 5 legal questions. There's so many when you're starting up, but we're going to go over some of the big ones today. So number 1, being able to verify. If you can figure this out before you even start your business and know how to do the research, then this will just put you a step ahead. So I always recommend reach out to the boards that this question governs. Now, you may, when I've called Oklahoma's board, they were very helpful, thank goodness, in giving me, the answers and answering. But you will come across boards that will say, we don't give advice, or we don't do this. And it's kind of frustrating because the board is the one that has the say. So if you're not going to tell me what you're wanting, it is just frustrating and doesn't make sense to me. But what do you do? You literally what do you do? So that is why the second part of using the lawyer, and the lawyer you want to use, they need to be proficient in healthcare law, knowing scope of practice and what laws to look into answer these, as well as business startups. So that is why you do not just want to use any lawyer. But let's go back. So the first question is going to be, who can legally mix up or draw the vitamins and mix them? Essentially, who can compound? Now, my course goes a lot more in depth than this, and some questions you may be like, I have more questions. In my mobile IV therapy starter course, specifically the live one that I teach twice a month, I go very much into detail on all of this. So if you're wanting more guidance and you're ready to start your business, that is the number one start I would take. Now, I can tell you, whether you're like, well, I don't want to take your course, that's fine. Just make sure that you take a course that goes over the legalities, very in depth. The business startup, you want to learn IV and vitamin education, dosing, what works well together. We teach, okay, what works well together, how does, like, for example, vitamin C work on the acute side of things, but also how does it work on the preventative side of things, on the cellular level. That's how we teach. I am very extensive, but that is me. And then number 4 is going to be marketing. Just find a course that touches on all of those. That'll set you up for success the best. Anyways, if you would like more information on the course and the next day, which is November 4th, down on the my website that has everything else. But anyways, back to who can legally mix or draw, because some states actually do not let RNs do this. That does not mean you cannot start your business, but it does mean you're going to have to structure it a different way. And I always tell my nurses, it's not about, you will be able to start your business. The answer is to how do you have to structure it to be compliant? And so that is one big question. Another question, number 2, what does my medical director have to review or sign off on? Some states are a little bit more lax on how involved the medical director has to be, as far as like, does my provider have to consult every patient, or can they just consult the first time and then, that's good for 6 months or a year. So then they've already been consulted, and if they're established, then you can go back and see them, however many times and operate off standing orders within that time. But not every state is like that. So that is a big thing to know as well. Number 3, what are my state's immediate use compounding rules? This goes back to the Board of Pharmacy as well. Question number 1 and 3 that we just went over are going to be the Board of Pharmacy. Number 2 is going to be your medical board if you have an MD or a DO, obviously. But back to number 3, my state's immediate use compounding. Now, that kind of covers, let me give you a little bit of backstory. That is the USP 797. That is what the Board of Pharmacy has that goes over compounding. There are different, you could say, categories within each one of those. And to be mobile, we have to operate under the immediate use. And so essentially, when we're looking that up, what does it say and what does my state say about that? And so that is what we have to be compliant with in order to fulfill the Board of Pharmacy's to be compliant with them. And I can tell you, for example, in Oklahoma, the USP 797 under the immediate use says something, but then my state is even more strict on actually, you have to use this within 1 hour versus 4 hours. So there is some, that's why it's very important to make sure you have a lawyer that knows this stuff and knows where to look. Otherwise, you're going to be operating wrong and not be compliant with these boards. Another thing the Board of Pharmacy actually governs, there are some states that they will want to come do a physical inspection of your storage room. Oklahoma is not one of those. I'm talking about within the immediate use, but some say yes. And so if you don't know that can get you in trouble, and that's something that needs to be verified as well. Number 4, how do I legally transport, store, and dispose of my supplies? That also, it's a little bit of the health department, more the Board of Pharmacy. It kind of mixes in with OSHA, but a lot of, if you have temperature controlled vials and whatnot, how are you going to be transporting those and also documenting and showing that they are going to be staying within the exact temperature? So that can be as easy as, making sure that there's a thermometer in there and you can document and, throughout the time that you're out doing infusions, that it is staying within that specific temperature range. And number 5 is going to be what extra permits apply. Now, again, every state's a little bit different, so not all of this is going to apply. And I might be saying this wrong. I've always pronounced it like a CLIA. That's probably wrong. But I'm pretty sure we don't use that. But off the top of my head, I believe that is if you're going to offer any sort of labs, you have to have that permit. But also is there any movable business? So I can tell you if we were gonna go do an event, maybe, I don't know, just we're gonna go to a golf course that's around my area. And if that golf course is on city limits and not a private golf course, like a country club, then we actually have to get a permit with the city in order to be able to be there. So things like that as well. And just knowing like where do I even look into this? What do I need to look into? And so those are going to be 5 questions that are going to put you ahead. If you can go ahead and jumpstart on those and just be familiar, like, okay, this is a good base of what I need to, look into. And then remember, these are calling the boards for the extra permits. Some of those, it's very specific to what you're wanting to do. So obviously, like, if I am going, like, you can learn a lot of this if you just go ask this. Like, we asked this golf course, hey, can we set up here? And they said, well, you're going to have to get a permit from Lloyd County. Like, it's just some of that you reach out and learn as you go. So, if the legal side is for some reason stopping you, and I get it, it is a big, scary thing, then don't let it. I make compliance make sense and easy for nurses. Like I said, my next course coming up is November 4th. If you would like specifics on that, you can look down below and there's a link there. It's mobileivtherapystartup.com. And also, make sure you subscribe to this. I release videos every Wednesday that are going to be there to help you and guide you in your startup process from a nurse who has done it myself and wish I had had a nurse's point of view, because a lot of times we learn from people who are not in the nursing role. And some of the stuff is just over our head and we don't understand because we are not that type of, like, business administrator or, whatever it may be. So I'm here as a nurse to help you. And you guys have a great Wednesday.